Garrett Perfect. So he's going to be shackled on the bottom half, but they are underneath the table and cannot be seen by the jury. So, State, are we ready to proceed with second phase?
Yes, Judge. So the court is aware we intend to call 2 witnesses. One is Dr. Palma, the second is Mr. Sigler. I think we let Mr. Shura know that yesterday just to give him a heads up of what we intend to do. The purpose of calling Mr. Sigler would be solely to authenticate text messages that he received from Megan Brown, which I've given Mr. Shura a copy of the draft or the format that we intend to seek to introduce them in. But if they have any objection to that, I have case law, and it would probably be better to argue that now than when the jury is here.
All right. Defense, you're here, and your client is here. Are you ready to proceed?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right. And now that the state has laid out the intent,
I'd like to approach off the record first.
Okay. All right. So the state intent, before we go over the preliminary instructions that I'm going to read, the state is going to go first, and they intend to call 2 witnesses. Dr. Palma, any problem with that one?
Yes, we object to that, Your Honor. He's already testified twice. It's just doing it again, and it's duplicitous.
Okay. And how about Mr. Sigler?
We object to his testimony too. It doesn't go to aggravators or explaining away any mitigators.
Okay. So let me go over state on Dr. Palma. What are you going to have him testify?
Well, Judge, the questions are going to be new in nature. They're going to put on the record that with the, as it relates to the blunt force trauma, as it relates to both Nicholas Leonard and Margaret Brown, that although there were multiple strikes of blunt force trauma as to each of them, that he cannot tell us which one would have led to the death. But he can add, and what would be new testimony, is that with each additional strike, there would be a level of bleeding and a level of pain associated with each additional strike, if you will. That is a question that we did not ask, and that it is limited just to that nature as it relates to Nicholas and Margaret. In addition, as it relates to Gregory Brown, is that the first shot in the back that would have struck the iliac bone would have led to pain, but would have not led to immediate death. And in accordance with the defendant's own testimony, that there would have been time between the first shot and the second shot that would have allowed Gregory Brown to reflect on his life, and as the case law bears out as it relates to heinous, atrocious, and cruel, that the thought of impending death is a factor that the jury can take into consideration, not only as to himself, but also as to his only daughter, who was surviving at that point, in accordance with the defendant's own testimony.
Okay. All right. Defense, any argument on top of that?
Nothing further.
All right, I'll go ahead and overrule the objection. Dr. Palma can testify to the limited scope that we just went over. How about Mr. Sigler? Mr. Trigger, you said you had some case law for me?
Yes, Judge. I have quite a bit of case law. So first, I believe the argument by defense was that it is not relevant, so I'm going to first provide Gore v. State 706 Southern 2nd 1328. Giving a copy of the defense as well, which indicates although death by a gunshot may have been instantaneous, the actions preceding the killing are irrelevant. And in particular, I'm quoting the actual case, although Elliott's death by gunshot was most likely instantaneous, we have held that the actions...
You got to go slower so she can type it.
And for Mr. Livermore, I'm on the very bottom of page 4.
Okay.
Although Elliott's death by gunshot was most likely instantaneous, we have held that the actions of the defendant preceding the actual killing are relevant to this aggravator, heinous, atrocious, or cruel. We have also held that the fear and emotional strain of the victim from the events preceding the killing may contribute to its heinous nature. Then I also have I'll bring the case up to the court in a second. Pooler v. State.
Is that Pooler with a P?
Pooler with a P.
Okay.
704 Southern 2nd, 1375. And page 2, towards the bottom, the very bottom. In this case, the record contains evidence over and above the fact that the victim pleaded for her life and received multiple gunshot wounds. Kim Brown learned of Pooler's threat to kill her son 2 days before she was killed, giving her ample time to ponder her fate. Any doubt she may have had about the sincerity of Pooler's threat must have been dispelled when he visited her apartment that morning with a gun, forced his way in, and shot her fleeing brother in the back. Those facts are similar to ours, and it shows that the threats that this defendant gave Ms. Brown and her state of mind after receiving those threats as she's texting Mr. Sigler are relevant to her terror and her fear throughout the day, which would have been compounded when this defendant did show up and then not only kills her boyfriend who's protecting her, but her father who's protecting her before executing Miss Megan Brown. And then I also have, I'm sorry, I forgot to give this to you. Hitchcock v. State, which is 991 Southern 2nd, 337. And here's a copy for the defense. Page, I believe that's page 9. Yeah, page 9, first column towards the bottom. With respect to HAC, the circuit court correctly found that a threat on the victim's life contributes to the victim's apprehension prior to death and is thus relevant to the HAC aggravating factor. A threat need not be made contemporaneously with the murder in order to be relevant to the HAC aggravator if it causes the victim to experience fear, emotional strain, and terror in the moments leading up to her murder. And again, as argued, clearly this defendant had put Ms. Megan Brown in particular in a state of fear and terror from the moment that he threatens her life, and she makes that 911 tape throughout the day as he continues to text her that he's going to come back and finish her off, as the testimony from Mr. Sigler will.
What's Mr. Sigler going to testify?
He's going to authenticate this text message, Judge, that he received from Ms. Brown. It is a text message authored by Ms. Brown, Ms. Megan Brown, and I can approach the court and give the court a copy.
You want to mark it?
Yes.
You don't have to mark it. I'm just going to look at it. You can mark it later.
And actually, it's a brief conversation that they have over the course of a couple of hours. It is in a different time zone, but it coordinates between 9 o'clock and about trying to do math here. 9 o'clock and the afternoon hours that would be shortly before at least this defendant claims when Megan Brown's death would have been. And in particular, the first one that has the number 278 preceding it, and the third to last one that has the number 283 preceding it, and the very last one, I think both indicate Megan relaying those threats that the defendant made and her state of mind regarding those threats. And added to some of the testimony that is already on the record from Mr. Sigler that when he spoke to Ms. Brown after these text messages, that she was concerned and fearful.
All right, you can go back. I read it. Defense?
Struggling to do the math on time period. Whether there's 5 or 6 hours difference.
Well, it's over the course of the day between the 911 call and the time that you're claiming.
No, the time on here is listed as Greenwich Mean Time.
Oh,
and
okay.
I'm trying to convert it.
Yeah, GMT would be 5 hours ahead, so the first one would be at 7:12 in the morning, and the last one would be at 2 o'clock in the afternoon.
And according to the state's version, this happened at 11 at night, so I would suggest this, which apparently the jury found, I would suggest that the time lapse of this is too great to be of any relevant value.
Okay.
Between 2 and 9 hours, you know, if it's at 2, it's 9 hours later.
I apologize. I did not give the court the case law I was referring to.
I got it right here on mine. I got it up on. The case law in Poole, they said 24 hours was enough. So we're talking less than 12 at this point. So obviously under Pooler, P-O-O-L-E-R, Pooler, they said that 24 hours was enough that the state could provide that information to the jury for their consideration on whether a gunshot wound coupled with the threats and strain of the emotional strain and terror of the victim during the events leading up to the murder may be considered in determining whether this aggravator is sufficient or satisfied even where the victim's death was almost instantaneous, which is almost exactly on point to what we have. It's a little worse in Pooler because he dragged her out of the house, but it wasn't the dragging her out of the house and stuff that they were talking about, whether they should admit. It was the phone conversations and the threats that he made to her prior to showing up at the house that they're talking about. So in this particular case, I'm going to overrule the defense's objection and find that Mr. Sigler's testimony of the fear of Ms. Brown between the 911 tape when she alleges on that tape that she is in fear and that he threatened to kill her, the additional information that he continued to text her and contact her to finish the job or finish her off, and the fact she must have felt when he actually showed up at her house, just like in the Pooler case, and then the events that occurred between when he did arrive at the house and by his admission, she was the last one that was killed of the 3 first people that were killed. And, you know, whether Margaret Brown was killed first or last, she was most certainly killed in the garage downstairs. So that was a separate entity. Miss Megan Brown would not have known about Margaret Brown, so I'm taking that out of the equation. I don't believe any of the 3 people upstairs would have known about Margaret Brown's death. That was the whole point, I assume, of the way that she was killed. If that's what the jury believes, if that's what the defense is, that the jury believed the state's version of the case as opposed to the defendant's version of the case. But either way, the whole idea was to keep Margaret Brown from going upstairs or, you know, getting out of the space that she was in. So she's kind of taken out of that equation of the 3 upstairs. If you just talk about the 3 that were killed in the living area of the house, everybody, the whole testimony seems to indicate that Megan Brown was killed last. So that means she already saw Nicholas Leonard stabbed or beaten. She's already seen her father shot twice, and then she's shot last. And all of this is after he has threatened to kill her earlier in the day and then continued to text her. And I may be a little off, but I think the defense agrees that it was at least 9 text messages between when the 911 call was made and 4 o'clock in the afternoon. I think it's 9, it may be 7, but somewhere in 7 to 9. I know there was 122 total, but I think somewhere in the testimony it was only 9 between when the 911 call was made and when it stopped, when all the calls stopped at 4:20. So there's 9 text messages in that time frame, and it appears that Mr. Sigler is going to testify that he spoke to Megan Brown in that time period by text and by phone, that she was in fear and continued to be in fear, and so under the Pooler case, that would be admissible. All right, anything else from the state?
The only thing else, Judge, is I'm not sure that Mr. Sigler has arrived yet due to his own personal medical conditions. He has a very, very difficult time getting going without elaborating. He spoke to me and it is all legitimate. It's not that he just didn't want to wake up early. but he informed us he would be here as close to 9 o'clock as he could be, so we are expecting him any minute.
Okay, well, we need to go over the preliminary instructions again anyway.
Okay.
And Dr. Palmer's here.
I'm sorry?
Dr. Palmer is
And
here.
Dr. Palmer's here. So we went over the preliminary instructions that I was going to read to the jury once they're brought back. Just so everybody knows, all 12 arrived, so I went ahead and released the alternate jurors. I kept them under sequestration until this morning. Once all 12 of the original jurors arrived, I went ahead and released the alternates. Because once we start this, the alternates couldn't be seated anyway, so we're going to go with the 12 that resolved the case in the first phase. Defense, have you had an opportunity to go over the preliminary instructions again?
No. I'm doing it right now, and it's only 2 pages. So
Okay.
too much. I've read through it. It is as you have directed.
All right, and of course, your objections that you were raised on our meeting on Friday, you're not waiving any of those previous objections and requests for the changes. I did go through my notes, and it looks like all the changes that we agreed to were there, so we're good to go on that. Did we decide what the proposed mitigation is? Did we get a list? Or are we all...
Judge, they were kind enough to send me an email. I did include that into the draft copy of the penalty proceedings.
Okay.
So they're in there, 1 through 30, as they outlined, and then 31 was the catch-all that came from the project standard instructions.
All right, we're not there quite yet, but I had a conversation with a few other judges over the weekend about the verdict form. And I guess on the actual proposed jury instructions, jury verdict forms that are out there, there's a place where all the mitigators are listed. And it looks like what is proposed by the state, they just say a mitigator exists. They don't have to find a number, a count, so to speak. They don't have to give you a 12-0, we find this mitigator, that mitigator. Are you okay with that, or do you want all the mitigators and all the counts?
I think we're okay with it at this point.
Okay, so you'll waive listing each mitigator and the count for each mitigator. They'll just basically say they find that they exist, yes, and then if they feel that they outweigh or they just feel like giving them life, then they just give them life. We all agree to that, yes?
Yes, and
All right.
it can't obviously be subject to argument.
All right, so are we ready? We have Dr. Palmer here, so we're ready to bring the jury up.
Yes, Judge.
Anything further from either side? All right, bring the jury up. I'll hold on to the verdict forms and the draft final instructions. We'll go over those. Defense, you did get a copy of the draft final instructions, yes?
Yes.
Okay, so try to lift those over and see if there's anything that needs to be changed, and we can have that discussion when we break for lunch.
That's the only verdict forms that I printed out. I know you only like one. So
Correct.
Only one.
No. I assume this is the ones you showed them.
I did. Judge.
Okay. One and only one.
All rise.
Be seated.
Stuck out.
I-
See you leave.
Steve, do you need the certified copy to Mark of the judgment and sentence?
Yes, Judge.
If you want to approach, it's right here. Is there anything else you need from the clerk? Mark?
You don't have where we use all those.
We do. I have a copy.
Yeah, there's two stickers and you put one, take one, key, I don't think they, yeah. So that way the clerk will know.
Okay.
Everything will, Mr. Sarabia, everything will be marked starting at 1 again,
Okay.
and then put PP next to it,
Okay.
okay? So it's very easy on appeal to know that it's penalty phase.
So originally I need.
She's getting small.
Anything you need from the first phase, it's not a problem. We'll just go by the number that was in it, so that they'll know the difference between the numbers. Depends if you intend to put on anything in your case, any pictures or anything, where
Yes.
you mark them starting at 1, fence is 1, but put PP behind it. Penalty phase.
Okay.
Just 1 PP,
I have-
or put at the top PP, I don't care, just so we know the difference. You only put in 2 pieces of evidence to begin with, so.
Right.
But I want to make sure that the appellate court knows the difference between the stuff that was in first phase and the stuff in second phase. Mr. Sarabia stepped out. Can we begin without him?
He's just checking on availability of the witness to make sure, we don't want to mention something in opening if he's not.
Okay, give me 1 second. Well, I got to read the preliminary instructions anyway, so.
Okay.
We'll bring the jury in. I will start. Defense, are you intending to make an opening?
Yes.
Okay.
All for your presidency.
All right. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Nice to see you again. Was everybody able to follow my instructions? No reading about tweeting, texting, or blogging? Yes? Yes. All right.
Judge, may we approach with three?
Sure.
I forgot something.
All right, state, call your first witness.
Yes, Your Honor, state with Dr. Palma, Roll Palma.
Good morning, doctor. We're going to have you sworn again. If you want to step up to the podium. You want to stop right there? Raise your right hand. Can I look for you? Swear the witness. Yes.
Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
All right, sir. Please have a seat in the witness stand. Speak in a loud and clear voice. State, you may proceed.
Good morning, Dr. Palma.
Good morning.
I would like to focus your attention to some specific injuries as it relates to the victims in the case upon which you performed autopsies. All right? I'd like to start with the injuries sustained by Margaret Brown.
Okay.
I'm correct in saying that there were multiple blunt force trauma injuries to Ms. Brown's head.
Yes, that's correct.
How many?
There were 9.
All right. And just so we're clear, based on your examination of Ms. Brown, there's no way to definitively say the order in which those strikes occurred.
That is correct.
All right. There is one particular injury that would have ultimately led to her death immediately, correct?
That is correct.
And that's the injury to the left side of her head.
Correct.
I'd like to focus on the other 8 injuries that she sustained, okay? And in those 8 injuries, there is no way to definitively say which injury occurred first, correct?
That is correct.
But my question to you would be is that as to the first injury she sustained, whichever one it may have been, that would have been an injury that would have led to bleeding?
Yes.
And would there have been a level of pain associated with that injury?
Yes.
As it relates to the second strike, if she survived, would that have led to bleeding?
Yes.
And would that have led to an association amount of pain?
Yes.
All right. And is that true with the third injury that she would have sustained?
Yes.
And the fourth injury?
Yes.
At some point, those injuries could have overcome her?
Yes.
All right. And you've had an opportunity to look at some of the evidence in this case as it relates to the fact that she moved from one location to the next.
That's correct, yes.
All right. So is it fair to say that the first injury that she sustained did not lead to her being unconscious, correct?
Which injuries?
Just whatever one it would have, if it's as long as it's not the one on the side of her head. What would you agree with me that the injury to the side of her head that led to the
Objection
whole?
leading, Your Honor.
Overruled, he's an expert witness, so he can do a hypothetical.
Okay.
So hypothetically,
Yes, Your Honor. So, Dr. Palma, let's talk about the injuries, I guess, in a hypothetical nature, assuming that the injury to the left side of her head was not the first injury.
Okay.
And that there would have been 8 other injuries that she would have sustained. Is it fair to say that at least at the first injury, one of those 8 may not have led to her being unconscious?
Correct. Yes.
Okay. And the fact that there are multiple injuries, they all would have led to some sort of bleeding event.
Yes.
And there would have been a level of pain that could be associated with each injury.
Correct. Yes.
And the head itself is I think the word you used was a vascular area?
The scalp. Yes.
Yes, and what does that mean in relation to blunt force trauma?
And there will be a lot of bleeding.
Okay. Dr. Palma, as it relates to the injuries of Nicholas Leonard, he also sustained blunt force trauma to the head,
Yes.
and there was also other injuries to his body, correct?
Correct.
All right, I want to focus as to the injuries to his head, all right? How many injuries did he sustain?
There were 21 blows.
All right. Based on your evaluation, can you tell this jury which one happened first and which one happened last?
No.
All right. Can you opine that with at least the first injury that he sustained as to the head, that there would have been a bleeding event
Yes.
and there would have been a level of pain associated with that?
Yes.
And is that true with the second injury that he would have sustained?
Yes.
And the third?
Correct. Yes.
Okay. At some point, as long as the injury is continuous, there would be bleeding associated with it.
Correct. Yes. Yes.
And if conscious, there would be an association of pain.
Yes.
And finally, Dr. Palma, speaking about the injuries to Gregory Brown.
Okay.
Mr. Brown was the victim of gunshot wounds.
Right.
I think you said multiple gunshot wounds.
Gunshot wounds of
Yes.
torso.
All right. If I were to suggest to you that the defendant testified that he shot Mr. Gregory Brown twice, is that consistent with your findings?
Yes.
All right. Let's talk about the injury to his iliac bones and spine area.
Correct. Yes.
All right. The gunshot wound to the iliac spine, the through shot, would there have been associated pain with that?
Yes.
Right? And if that injury or the other injuries would have led to the damage to the aortic spine, spinal aorta, what is it?
Aorta, abdominal aorta. Yes.
Forgive me, thank you, doctor. That is an injury that would have ultimately led to his death.
Yes.
Is that an injury that would have immediately caused him to fall?
Could have. Yes.
All right. And is that one that would have immediately led to death? Or would there have been a time for him that he would have bled out as a result
There
of
will
the
be a
injury?
short time period before finally the patient will die. Yes.
All right. And in that short time, would he have been conscious before losing conscious? I mean, is it?
Yes.
Okay. And if there was a second gunshot wound that was to his abdominal or chest area, that is something that also could have led to his death.
Yes.
All right. One moment, Your Honor.
all right?
Thank you, Your Honor. No further questions.
Cross?
Now, Doctor, as it relates to your testimony about Margaret Brown,
Okay.
well, let's first talk about, you testified to something about moving, the possibility that she moved,
Yes.
but
Just now.
obviously, since none of us were there, we don't know how she moved, do we?
No.
We don't know whether somebody drug her as opposed to being able to move on her own, correct?
That's correct.
So we can't say that she moved on her own or that somebody drug her to any certainty.
That is correct. Yes.
Okay. And again, because we don't know the order of the blows, if the first one was the major blow to the left side of her head, it would be immediate loss of consciousness. And at that point, there would be no pain or sufferings or anything at that point, right?
The big blow, yes.
Yes.
The big hole.
Now, another blow with a, I guess we can assume at this point it was a hammer,
Okay.
when it came in contact with her head, there are other places where there are fractures, correct?
Correct.
And associated with that kind of fracture is going to be a shock wave or a force exerted on the brain, correct?
Correct.
And that can also cause a loss of consciousness.
Correct, yes.
And at that point, there is no more feeling, no more pain, because of a loss of consciousness, correct?
Yes, yes, correct.
And of the 9, would you say there were at least 4 of those that might have caused loss of consciousness?
I do not know, but there were 2 blows that had fractures.
Okay. And again, because we don't know when they happened, could have been immediate loss of consciousness.
Could have,
correct?
yes.
All right. Now, the same thing with Nicholas Leonard. There were more than 1 blows that could have or would have caused loss of consciousness.
Yes, correct.
Maybe not cause of death, but loss of consciousness.
That's correct.
And we don't know whether any one of those was first.
Correct.
They could have been first and there would be nothing.
Correct.
Now, as far as Gregory Brown is concerned, your testimony is that the abdominal aorta was severed.
Most likely, yes.
Okay. And again, we don't know when that happened,
That is correct.
and we don't know whether that was first.
Correct.
And I believe you testified on direct during the course of the trial that the loss of blood at the point of losing consciousness is not 100%. You say 30, 50%, something like that?
20-30%
Okay.
blood loss.
And again, we don't know when that happened.
That is correct.
That's all I have.
Any redirect?
Just briefly, Your Honor.
All right.
Dr. Palmer,
As it relates to the loss of consciousness as a result of blunt force trauma, if someone loses their consciousness as a result of it, would they be able to fight back?
No.
Right? If there's testimony that a person was fighting back, is that indicative of someone being conscious?
Correct, yes.
Okay.
no further questions.
All right, doctors, thank you very much. You may step down.
Thank you.
State, call your next witness.
So we call James Sigler.
All right, James Sigler. Good morning, Mr. Sigler. If you want to step up to the podium again for me.
Good morning.
I'll stop right there, raise your right hand, and be sworn by my clerk.
Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
All right, please have a seat in the witness stand, speaking loud and clear. All right, State, you may proceed.
Thank you, Judge. Mr. Sigler, we previously heard from you that on August 28, 2014, you were in contact with Megan Brown via text message and phone. Do you recall that?
Yes.
Now, Judge, may I approach the witness with State's 1 DP,
You may.
which previously has been shown to the defense counsel. I want to show you State's 1 DP. Do you recognize these?
Yes, they're my text messages back and forth
And are these text messages back and forth
with Megan.
the number you knew to be for Megan Brown's phone?
Yes.
And the ones that are labeled incoming, are those the messages she sent to you?
Yes.
And the ones that are labeled outgoing, are those the messages you sent to her?
Yes.
Now, there's a date and time in Greenwich Mean Time. You agree with me that at the time we were in Eastern Daylight Time.
Yes.
So these would be all 5 hours ahead, at least as listed on this particular sheet.
Okay.
You agree?
Yes. Yes.
Now, and at the time when law enforcement was investigating, you allowed them to come and download these messages from your phone so they could be preserved?
Yes.
And these do appear to be the same messages from Megan Brown that you received?
Yes, I remember the wording.
Okay. Judge, at this time, the state would like to move states 1DP into evidence.
Any objection?
Yes, sir.
All right, same previous objection?
And authenticity.
All right, I'll go ahead and overrule that objection. They'll be admitted as states number 1.
Okay, and Mr. Sigler, if you could just read that first incoming message from Megan Brown's phone number.
Jimmy, some serious shit is going on. My son's dad tried to kill me with a knife and is threatening to come back and finish me off.
Okay, and if you could read your 3 text messages to her.
My reply was, "Are you okay?" And she replied, I make a police report, I'm going to a funeral, and then I'll get with you after noon, okay?
That was your text?
That was my testimony, yes. I said I'd make a police report.
Okay, and then did you send her another one?
And then after, it says, yes, it says, he's not even in town, is he?
And that's your text message to her?
That was my text message back to her, yes.
All right, and then what was her next text message to
Her
you?
next text message was, yes, my son's dad. I came home last night and he put a knife to my throat and told me he was going to effing kill me. I had no choice but to grab the knife and plead. He cut my thumb. ND. My son woke up. He took off. Cops are looking for him. He keeps threatening me, telling me he's going to come back and finish me off. And then I replied, if you need help, let me know. And she replied back, thanks, I just want them to find him.
Okay. And you indicated subsequent to some of these, or in the midst of some of these text messages, you did have a voice conversation with her?
Yes, I did a backup call and called her back and asked her if she needed help, that if she wanted to, she could.
Without going into those details, since we already heard testimony about that, but was she discussing some of the same things that you received in these text messages?
Yes.
So, and as it relates to the content of these messages from Megan Brown's phone number,
yes.
Do they appear to be in the manner that she spoke and about the subjects that she was speaking to you about?
Yes.
And do you have any doubt that they were from her based on your conversation with her? All right, Judge, I have no more questions.
All right.
None? No questions.
All right. Mr. Sigler, thank you very much, sir. You may step down. All right. State, call your next witness.
Judge, at this time, the state would seek to admit the marked as states 2 PP. The judgment.
All right. Any objection?
No legal question.
All right. It'll be admitted as states PP number 2. Ladies and gentlemen, I marked them with the PP just so you know the difference between what we put in the first part and the second part. So it's penalty phase. That's what the PP stands for. All right. State, any additional witnesses or evidence you wish to enter at this time?
Not at this time, Your Honor. Stay with rest.
All right. Can I have the lawyers at the bench briefly? All right. State having rested. Defense, call your first witness.
Your Honor, at this time, the defense will call Rose Matos.
All right. Rose Matos. Good morning, ma'am. If you can step to the podium right there. You can raise your right hand and be sworn by my clerk.
Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
All right. You can see in the witness stand and speak in a loud and clear voice for me, okay? Thank you, ma'am.
Good morning, Ms. Matos. I know you're a very low talker, so if you could just remember to try to speak into the microphone, that way everyone can hear you, okay?
Ms. Matos, if you pull the microphone a little closer to you, it'll be a little easier for you. And you can move your chair up if you wish. You're fine. Thank you. You may proceed.
Can you please introduce yourself to the jury?
My name is Rose Matos.
And Ms. Matos, how do you know Adam?
Adam is my son.
Ma'am, you're going to have to talk up. You're in the microphone, but you...
Adam Matos is my son.
Thank you.
How old is Adam?
I think he's 32.
And how old were you when you had Adam?
Maybe 20, 21.
Is Adam your first child?
Adam's my second child.
How many siblings does he have?
One.
Who's your first child?
Peter Dehesa.
I want to talk to you about first, did Adam have any health problems growing up?
Yes.
What kind of problems?
He had chronic asthma.
When did he develop that asthma?
Pretty much when he was born.
And how did that affect him?
A lot of things. He couldn't play sports. Couldn't run. He didn't speak well.
Was he ever hospitalized for it?
Numerous times.
Approximately how many times would you say?
More than 10 times.
Now, where was Adam born?
Pennsylvania.
Do you remember where in Pennsylvania?
It's in Philadelphia. It's in I think it's North Philadelphia.
North Philadelphia?
Mhm.
How long did you live in North Philadelphia after Adam was born?
Oh, gosh, maybe 7 years old.
Can you walk me through approximately how many times did your family move while Adam was growing up?
We moved a lot of times. More than 10 times, maybe 12.
10 to 12 times?
Yes.
Why is that?
I was looking for better schools. The environment wasn't really great.
What do you mean by that when you say the environment wasn't great?
He was bullied. He was bullied in first grade, second grade, third grade. And I just continued to look for better schooling for him.
Right. Was there ever a point in time when you were living in a car with Adam and Peter?
Yes.
When was that?
I can't remember exact what year it was, but Adam was young.
Where was Adam's father while he was growing up?
He was doing his thing. I don't know. He was doing his life. He didn't care. He didn't want anything to, you know, he apologized to Adam, but he had his life and he chose drinking beer and carrying on. And
Was he ever involved in Adam's life?
no.
Did Adam ever meet him?
Yes.
How many times?
Maybe 3 times.
Did he ever stay with him?
No.
Did his father ever participate in any activities, school events, anything?
No.
Did Adam have any interaction with his father aside from the times he met him?
No.
Did he receive any support from his father?
No.
I know there was an incident, I think Adam was about 4 years old with a neighbor child. Can you tell us about that?
Adam was on his way to the store, and he was running down the steps, and I heard this scream. It was so loud. I ran down the steps, and he was screaming on the top of his voice. He could barely talk. The neighbor kid had whooped him with the munition blind, the plastic munition blind, twice, and ripped his skin open in his back. And it was really hard for Adam. He had to go to the hospital after that, and his asthma started up once again.
Did he have any other incidents where he was bullied like that by other children?
Yes. I think he was in 2nd or 3rd grade. He had to go to the hospital, and I used to ask him, what's the matter, Adam? You seem upset. You need to tell me, I can't help you. He wouldn't tell me. Till one day I said, Adam, you have to go to school. But Mommy, I can't. And I said, Adam, you have to. So he told me, he said, Mom, there's these two boys that keep on roughing me up. So I said, don't worry. Mommy will be there after school. Make sure you'll be okay. But it still got pretty mad, and he was sick all the time because he was upset.
I know there was at least one incident with his grandfather, that's your father. Can you tell us about that?
My dad, he was alcoholic. He was verbally and physically abusive. He used to scare Adam, and his pop don't scare him. He's just a little boy. Every kid don't like to be scared, especially when they have to go to sleep by themselves at night. And my dad would say, Cuckoo's going to come and get you. Cuckoo means the monster's going to come get you. And Adam would just run behind me. And he did it a couple times where it was tough to see Adam, frightened. He was frightened.
Did Adam ever see any abuse of you by your father?
Yes.
Such as what?
One day my dad came home and he was drunk. He wanted to have sex with a woman in my apartment. And I told him, you can't do that in my house. I have two boys I have to protect, and they don't need to see stuff like that. So my dad pretty much, he pushed the boys. The boys were trying to protect me. He pushed the boys out of the way, almost knocking Adam out. And he ran after me with a knife.
How did that affect Adam?
It affected both of them. They didn't want to be there. They didn't want to be there in the apartment anymore. They didn't know when he was going to come back. So we pretty much had to move from there.
I know there also you had a boyfriend that you lived with when Adam was in elementary school, a doctor, is that right?
Yes.
Did Adam ever witness any abuse of you by that boyfriend?
Yes.
Can you tell us a little bit about what he may have observed or seen?
One day I came home from work, and we were disagreeing. And I said, we need to talk. Let's talk. And he didn't want to talk. And Adam had walked in the room, and he body slammed me against the floor.
He body slammed you?
Body slammed me. And I hurry up for Adam not to see that I was hurt. And the second time, I came home from work. He was complaining that, Adam had friends over, and it was kind of late. And I said, well, I told him it was okay. His punishment was up. And he told me, well, this is my effing house. And I I'd call the shots. And I said, please, if you're mad at me, take it on me, but don't take it on my children. So pretty much, he pushed me so hard that I flew a couple feet away. And my back was pretty much, I was crippled at least 3 months. I even had to have back surgery. And it was tough on the boys seeing me so sick. They never seen mommy like that.
I think maybe around that time you and Adam were in a car accident?
Yes.
Can you talk a little bit about that incident?
I just had got in an accident in September of 2000. A tractor trailer hit us from behind. Adam was in the front seat with me. It was a horrific accident. 3 people got killed.
Cannot hear her at all.
It was a horrific accident where 3 people got killed. Not in my car, but around my car. I had a concussion, and I had fractured my chest. And pretty much that was tough because, it was a tragic,
And Adam was in the front seat with you during that?
Yes.
While you were living with the doctor,
Yes,
I think there was an incident where Adam was about 10 years old and he was arrested with a pipe,
yes,
a marijuana pipe.
yes.
Can you talk about that and where he got that item?
Adam had taken the doctor's marijuana. It was glass made, it's like a glass. It was to use marijuana. I found it in his drawer, and I told him, you need to get rid of this.
You found it in whose
I
drawer?
found it in the doctor's drawer. It's like a jewelry box for men. I said, you need to get rid of this, because if the boys find this, and you always sending them in the room to get whatever you want, and if the boys see this, what they're going to think of you or me? He says, well, they shouldn't be in my room. But Adam went in the room and he took it. But Adam got arrested that day. And I told Adam, you need to tell the officer the truth, who it belonged to, because I knew who it belonged to.
Who was at the police station with Adam after he was arrested?
It was I and Dr. DeBlito.
Okay. And did the doctor discourage Adam from telling the police where he got it?
Yes.
There was a point where Adam was trying to create a career for himself, is that right?
Yes.
What did he want to do?
He wanted to be a auto technician, making sounds and for music.
A DJ?
I wasn't sure what that, along that meant, but you can say a DJ or, yeah.
How old was he when he was trying to work on that?
Gosh, it was just a few years ago. I can't remember exactly what year it was.
Where was he living?
He was living in a property that I had rented, and he had his own apartment.
And where was the school that he was going to for?
New York City.
How far was that from the apartment that he was living in?
Well, in Mayors, Pennsylvania, in New York. I don't know how far that is, but I'm sure it's good ways. I'm not sure how far it is.
Okay, how was he getting to the school every day?
Taking the bus, the train.
How long would you say it would take him every day to get to the school?
Sure, 3 or 4 hours. Not sure.
When did Adam find out, or when did you find out that Adam was going to be a father?
Oh, gosh, Tristan's 8, pretty much 8 years ago when he came.
You're still going to have to keep your voice up. You can move your chair closer or whatever. As long as you speak right in the microphone, we hear you. But
I believe 8 years ago, Adam called me and he says, Mom, how do you feel if you're going to be a grandmom again? I said, Adam, I wouldn't feel no different. I would be happy, of course.
When you say again, did Adam have any other children?
No, because my son Peter had children.
Okay. How did Adam seem when he found out he was going to be a father?
Oh, he was happy. He was happy.
Did you ever see him with Tristan?
Plenty of times.
And how was Adam with his son Tristan?
Really good. He's a good father.
What do you mean when you say that?
He spent a lot of time with him, trying to teach him, reading books to him, taking him to the park. As much time if he can get with the boy, with my grandson, he would.
And Your Honor, if I could just approach the witness, I'm showing her what's been remarked as defense 1 PP.
all right, you may.
Do you recognize this picture?
Yes.
What is this a picture of?
Overwhelmed mother.
An overwhelmed mother?
Yeah.
When is this picture taken?
Gosh, Peter just turned 1, I believe. No, he wasn't. 1. He was a little bit over 1. It's so long ago. Adam was 3 months born there.
Who is in this picture?
That's me, Peter, and Adam. Adam's on my left side, Peter's on my right side.
Your Honor, at this time, the defense would move what's been pre-marked as Defense Exhibit 1 PP as Defense 1 PP.
Any objection?
No objection.
All right, it'll be moved in as defense number 1 into evidence PP.
Your Honor, may I approach the witness with what's been previously marked as Defense 2 PP?
Yes, and while you approach, just make sure she speaks up.
Okay.
She's talking lower because you're standing closer,
All right.
so I just need, go ahead and approach. Just need to keep, everybody in that whole row back there needs to hear you, okay? So there'll be Defense 2 PP, go ahead.
Do you recognize this photo?
Yes,
What is this a photo of?
Adam.
About how old is Adam in this picture?
I think he was 7. He could have been 6. It's been so long.
Your Honor, at this time, the defense would move what's been previously marked as Defense 2 PP into evidence as Defense 2.
State, any objection?
No objection.
All right, being as Defense 2 PP.
What type of child was Adam? What was his demeanor? Was he a happy child? Was he a morose child? What kind of child was he?
He's a happy child.
Did he ever have a steady male presence in his life? An adult male that he could look up to and turn to?
No.
How do you think that it affected Adam when you moved around so much when he was a child?
My oldest son, Peter, didn't come to meet his father until he was 13 years old. When Peter had met his father, I felt like Adam felt left out.
Peter and Adam have different fathers?
Yes,
And you feel that when Peter met his father, Adam started to feel left out?
yes.
What do you mean by that?
He wanted to know his father. He wanted to know where he came from and his other part of family.
Did he ever have the chance to do that?
I think he met his uncle, and Adam was maybe 8, 9 years old. He met him one time.
And other than that, did he have any contact with his father's family?
No.
If I could just have one moment, Your Honor.
You may.
You know what your son has been accused of, correct?
Yes,
You know what your son has been convicted of?
yes.
How do you feel about your son now knowing what this jury has found him guilty of?
I love my son no matter what. I am hurt, just like any parent would feel hurt. It's hard. It's hard. It's hard. I can't even explain to you. It's hard. Because as a single parent, try to teach its children there has to be another way than, what you see on TV or what you see before your eyes.
I don't have any further questions, Your Honor. Permission to publish the photos to the jury?
You may. All right, Cross? Then I know you just need to continue to keep your voice up, okay? Thank you.
Good morning, ma'am. Adam has a older brother named Peter,
Yes.
and as you were raising Adam, Peter is how much older than Adam?
They're a year and a half apart.
All right, so if Adam was in, let's just say first grade, was Peter in the grade level right above it, like in second grade?
Yes.
And they were close, correct?
Yes.
When you were raising both boys, you raised them together, correct?
Yes.
And when you moved, they moved together, correct?
Yes.
Is it fair to say that in their early portions of their childhood, they had a similar upbringing?
Yes.
I'm sorry, ma'am.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. And you described for this jury that on a number of occasions you moved, correct?
Yes.
And each time you moved, to the best of your ability, you would provide a home for both Peter and Adam.
Yes.
You indicated that when Adam had medical issues like the asthma, you would provide him with medical treatment.
I would take him to the doctors, specialists.
You cared for him, correct?
Yes.
And he had an issue with the asthma. You did your best to get him the treatment that he needed.
Yes.
His asthma, was it a serious issue?
Yes.
Is that one that he maintained through his life,
Yes.
even into adulthood?
He stopped taking his medication. They would give him steroids.
Okay. He stopped taking them.
Yes.
When there were issues at school, you were an attentive parent and took care of the issues as it relates to the bullies that he dealt with, correct?
Yes.
You met with school officials and kind of explained to them what was going on?
Yes.
And you did your best to address the issues that he was having?
Yes.
And when there were issues in the home, you kind of outlined a number of issues related to your father, their grandfather, and as to your boyfriend. When there was an issue in the home, you did your best to protect them, correct?
Yes.
And you would explain to them when something was done wrong, you would try to explain to them the situation, correct?
Yes.
Try to rear them up the best that you could.
Yes.
And you brought up the situation where Adam Matos finds a marijuana pipe inside the home, correct?
Yes.
And you explained the story. You took that opportunity to explain to him the difference between right and wrong as it relates to that.
Yes.
And you did your best to explain to him the difference between right and wrong, correct?
Yes.
And you would have done that for Adam, and you would also have done it for your other son, Peter, correct?
Yes.
All right. Ma'am, you had an opportunity to view Adam Matos with his son Tristan, correct?
Yes.
And you provided this jury with the opinion based on your interaction with him and his son that Adam was a good father, correct?
Yes.
All right, ma'am. Have you had an opportunity to hear the admissions or the testimony of Adam Matos as it relates to what happened in this case?
I heard the last testimony of Adam.
You heard his testimony,
Not
ma'am?
all of it.
Not all of it? And you're aware that the things that he's been convicted of are things that he did in the home while Tristan was in the home, correct?
I don't know what happened. I wasn't there.
I understand,
but I
ma'am.
just listened to the testimony.
Well, you know your son. You heard the things he admitted to, correct, ma'am?
Yes.
I guess what I'm trying to ask you, the things that he admitted to, those all happened while Tristan was in the home, correct?
I don't know if Tristan was in the home.
All right, assume for a second that Mr. Matos says that Tristan's in the home while he's doing all the things that he's admitted to, okay? And has been convicted for.
Right.
You with me so far?
If Adam said that,
Yes, ma'am.
then that's what he said.
All right. Knowing that, okay, knowing that he does all these things in the house while Tristan's there, does that change your opinion as to what kind of father that he is?
It hurts any parent. Same thing.
Or is your opinion of him?
Opinion.
What kind of father that he is? Does that change your opinion?
Well, any father shouldn't do what he did, of course.
All right.
right, ma'am, thank you very much. You may step down. Defense, call your next witness.
Your Honor, the defense would call Angela Bracali.
Is she in the hallway? Oh, of course she is. Wait, and then we call you when you have to. That's what it was. Good morning, ma'am. If you'll step up to the podium. Stop right there. Raise your right hand and be sworn by my clerk.
Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, or nothing but the truth?
I do.
All right, please have a seat in the witness stand, speak in a loud and clear voice for me, okay?
Good morning.
Morning.
Can you please introduce yourself to the jury?
My name is Angela Bracali,
And Ms. Bracali? Can you spell that for the court reporter?
Bracale.
Ms. Bracali, do you know Adam?
Yes, he's my nephew.
And did you have any sort of relationship with Adam when he was growing up?
Not really. I moved away from Philadelphia more than 30 years ago.
Did you ever have any interaction with Adam when he was a small child?
Yes, I used to visit every once in a while when I could. And when he was 5, one morning, I was in the living room getting ready to make breakfast, and I seen him playing with his little toys.
And this was a time that you visited Adam when he was
Yes.
5? Okay.
I was visiting my family, and he had these little soldier toys, and he had like 10 here and about 5 on the other side, and I asked him what he was doing. I said, "What are you playing?" He says, "Well, I'm playing with my little soldiers. These are the bad guys, and these are the good guys."
He had divided the
He
soldiers.
divided them.
Okay.
He says, "But there's more good guys than bad guys. But I'm going to put them all together and make them all good guys. Because we should be good guys, right, Auntie Angie?" He used to say Auntie Angie to me. And I says, "Yes, you should always be a good guy." And that was it. And I hugged him. I hugged him and I kissed him. I told him I loved him.
What kind of child was he?
He was happy. He was a happy boy.
Did you stay in contact with him as he got older?
Not really. I was a single parent myself and raising 2 kids by myself. So I had 2 jobs and working, and I really didn't have the money to travel and see him that much.
Did you ever talk on the phone or write letters?
Yeah, once in a while we said hi. He was always polite to me, always respect me. He never talked back to me. He was always a nice kid.
And he had some contact with your daughter, is that right?
Yes.
I believe there was an incident.
When my sister had her children, they were living with me in Philadelphia. After that, I moved to Florida. But my daughter got very attached to him because she was older. And he was so cute, and she just got attached to him. So yeah, they had a really good relationship, but they didn't stay in touch because I moved away.
Was there a time when your daughter saw Adam when they were a little bit older at an airport?
Oh yes, I would send my daughter on vacation, summer school vacation, to see her family in Philadelphia. And she would try to see her cousins and, you know, family. One year, her flight got delayed. So, since it was delayed, she had to stay there at the airport, and Adam was with her. And he stood with her all night long. He didn't leave her alone. She never forgets that.
Why did he do that?
Because he loved her so much, and he wanted to protect her. He didn't want anyone to, you know, hurt her, because, you know, she was by herself, you know. So, yeah, he stayed with her, and he waited till she got on the plane, and they hugged each other, and she went home.
You know why Adam is here, correct?
Yes.
You know what he has been convicted of?
Yes.
Knowing all of that, how do you feel about your nephew?
Well, I will always love my nephew no matter what. To the day I die. I'm very sad, and my heart is broken for the families. But I will always love him. He will always be my little Adam.
I don't have any further questions. Thank you.
Ross? Yes, Judge.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Now, you said Adam is your nephew.
Yes.
Is Rose your sister? Is that the relationship?
Yes.
Okay. And how long did you live in the same town as Adam, Matos?
Well, till he was about, 2, I believe, if I can remember. It's been so long. But he was a baby when I left.
Somewhere around 2 years old?
Yeah.
And then you went out to Las Vegas?
Yes.
And you would still come back and visit
I
periodically?
moved to Florida.
Florida, I'm sorry. Do you live in Vegas now, or did I make that up?
Yes.
Okay. So you lived in Florida, but you would still visit occasionally?
Not very often. I would see them maybe every 2-3 years.
Okay. And would you travel up there, or would they travel down to Florida?
No, I always visit them.
And when you went up there, would you stay with Rose Matos?
I stayed a couple days with Rose, my sister, and my sister Judy. You know, I would try to see all my family.
Right, while you've made the trip,
Yes.
visit as many as you can.
Yes.
And would your children come with you?
Yes.
And you have 2 children, you said,
Yes.
right? Are they grown?
Yes.
Good children?
Yes.
And you talked about an incident with Adam Matos when he was 5 years old playing with some toys.
Mm-hmm.
And at that time, he indicated to you that there were good guys and there were bad guys.
Yes.
And he indicated clearly that he understood the difference between the
Yes.
two. And you also told us about an incident at the airport where he waited with your daughter.
Yes.
When was that?
I think she had just, right before she graduated high school. She didn't quite finish till the following year, I think, or 2 years. I can't exactly remember.
She was somewhere around 17 years old,
Yes.
roughly. Roughly how old would Adam Matos have been?
Well, Adam is about 4 or 5 years younger than my daughter, I think.
And was that about 15 years ago, roughly?
Roughly,
Okay.
maybe a little more.
Your Honor, may I have just one moment?
You may.
No further questions.
Any redirect? All right, ma'am, you may step down. Thank you very much. Defense, call your next witness.
Judge, defense calls Estelle Austin.
Can you spell the last name for me?
Austin. 80 West area.
Right. I would have never gotten that. Good morning, ma'am. Good morning. Can you step up to the podium for me? Okay. You can stop right there, raise your right hand, and be sworn by my clerk.
Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
All right, ma'am. Have a seat in the witness stand, and you can speak in a loud and clear voice for me, okay? Okay. Thank you.
Okay.
Can we proceed?
Good morning, ma'am.
Good morning.
That's not going to do it. You're going to have to move that chair up a little and speak into the microphone for me. I have a bunch of low talkers. All right, you can move the microphone right to your mouth, and there you go.
Is that better?
Yes, much better. Thank you.
Okay.
Would you please tell us your name?
Estelle Austin.
Miss Austin, where do you live?
I live at on Gulf Way in Hudson, Florida.
And with whom do you live there?
Max Austin, my husband.
And how long have you lived there?
6 years, 6, 7 years.
Now, is that off of Old Dixie Highway?
Yes.
Do you know where Hatteras Avenue is?
Sure.
Is it nearby?
Yes.
Miss Austin, do you recognize that young man sitting at the table with the orange and white outfit?
Sure, it's Adam.
Do you know Adam's last name?
Matos.
Have you ever met him before?
Yes.
Can you describe to us the occasion on which you met Adam Matos?
Okay. Let's see. It was July, I believe. It was hot in the summer. He came out of a house. Our street is here. The house he was at was right on the next street, and I was driving down the road. And he was coming out of the house. He's about the age of my son. And so I noticed he was walking toward an area where there is a nature preserve. So it's a desolate road. It's a long way. It was very hot that day. And I stopped and I said, "Where are you going?" He said, "I'm walking to work." I said, "That's too far for you to walk. It's in this heat. Hop in, I'll give you a ride." And so he got in my car and we started talking. He's from Pennsylvania. And my grandfather had a farm that was almost in Pennsylvania, in Maryland, almost in Pennsylvania. And so we had a lot of common background. And I said, "You need some way of getting to work, so you need a bicycle or something. Do you mind being a little bit late for work?" And so we went by an ATM, and I pulled out some cash, and I handed him $100, and I said, "This is for you to get a bike." And then I drove him to work, and then later on, a few weeks later,
Well, let me stop you there for a second.
Okay.
How far away? Where was he working at that time?
he was working at a restaurant that I can't think the name of. It wasn't that far away. It was
How far away was it, do you think?
a few miles.
And so did he call work and tell him that he was going to be a little late?
Well, I don't know if he had a phone or not, because he was very quiet, and he was very, mannerly and nice in the car. I don't remember him calling work to say he was going to be late, no.
So you went to your bank and withdrew $100 from your account?
Right, with him in the car.
And you were about to talk about, you said, a few weeks later? Can you tell us what happened?
Right, a few weeks later, it wasn't that long, I was at the house, and my husband was, and Adam came up to the house with the bike. And I was surprised, because you don't know what people are going to do when you hand them some money. And so he came up with the bike, and he said, look, I got the bike. And he was very excited, and look, I've got transportation to work. And so he told me to stop by sometime and meet his family and so on and so forth. So he did what he said he was going to do, and he got the bike, and he had transportation to work.
And Miss Austin, are you in the habit of giving money out to complete strangers?
No, that was a fluke. It was
we're a small community, and we know everybody. It was somebody in the community, and I don't know why I stopped. I don't know. It was just, have you ever done something out of the norm? I mean, it's just something out of the norm.
And can you begin to describe what possessed you to act out of the norm?
Maybe it was because he's about the same age as my son, and he was getting ready to go for a long walk down a hot road in a very hot day. Everyone needs help at some point, you know.
Thank you. No further questions.
That's it?
Hold on.
Oh.
Any cross-examination?
Yes, Judge. So, Ms. Austin, you were kind to Mr. Matos, right?
Right.
You showed him an act of kindness because you were trying to help him out, right?
Right.
You wanted him to succeed in whatever endeavor he was engaged in. So you, completely out of charity, you did something nice for him, right?
Correct.
Okay. I don't have any more questions, Judge.
Any redirect?
No, ma'am.
Ma'am, thank you very much. You may step down. If you want to remain in the courtroom, you can. I know you've been outside, but you can sit inside the courtroom if you wish, okay?
Okay.
All right, thank you. You don't have to, you can go if you want to. Spence, call your next witness.
Norman, will you approach?
You may. Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to take lunch a little early this morning. We have the next two witnesses have just flown in, and this way it'll give a chance for the lawyers to speak to them before we just hustle them in and sit them on the witness stand. So we're going to go ahead and give you back your phones. We'll take an hour for lunch. If you can be back down in the jury pool room at 12:50. All right, and again, same rules apply, nothing's changed, no tweeting, texting, blogging, no talking about it until you go ahead and go back in the jury room. And we're moving along at a good pace. So when we come back this afternoon, I might have some questions for you if you want to stay late tonight and try to finish it up all in one night. But there's things attached to that, so I need to see where we get, okay? So you all have a nice lunch. See you back down in the jury pool room at 12:50.